So welcome back. As you can see, I've built a temporary support on the right hand side here, and now I'm using 2x5s to figure out the angles that these last logs are going to go in at, so that I can cut that support to the right height in order to support the logs while I draw them or scribe them. While doing this, however, I decided that if I could find the right log, I'd like to have one fairly small log joining the two short walls together at the top, where I've got a 2x5 there at the moment. And as luck would have it, I found the perfect log. It's a relatively small log compared to most of the other logs in the building, but it has a nice bow to it, similar to the last log that I put on the back wall. So in the same way, I'm going to rotate the log so that the bow is mimicking the shape of the roof. There is, however, a fairly big difference in size between the two ends of this log, so I'm going to lift the small end up and put a small block of wood under there so that the two ends are at the same height before I draw it. Of course, I'm going to have to fix this log, fix it quite firmly in place, because with the small end being lifted up and with the bow going upwards, there's a high likelihood it's going to move when I'm trying to scribe, so get that fixed firmly in place. So that's the first of those 2 logs up there, but what I'm going to do now is actually set up the second one as well before drawing either of them. I want the ends to definitely meet up perfectly, so I'm going to get them both up there, rotated into a good position, and the 45-degree miter cut in the ends of both those logs so I can have them touching at this stage, so I can be sure that the heights are just perfect and the angles are the same. Then it allows me to scribe both logs, dropping them by the same amount, and being able to be confident that it's going to end up with everything in the right place, as it should be. So I had a change of mind with this log. What I'd said in the previous video was that I was going to drop this log and then cut the top to meet up with the back of this log over here. But in the end I decided not to do that. As you can see, what I did was I put the log on
It's an 18 centimeter thick log, so I set the scriber to 9 centimeters. And then I drew this notch at 9 centimeters, so half the thickness of the log. And I only drew that end, I didn't draw this end at all. I cut that notch and then put the log back on, so it was sitting halfway down here and was still sitting all the way up at this end. And then keeping the scriber at exactly the same, that other 9 centimeters, I redrew the whole log, which meant that as I dropped this, I'd go all the way through this log and it would meet up with the back of that log. So I wouldn't need to do that cutting that I usually do. I'll show you that in the project I did last year, where you put the logs on and then you cut the line of the roof. This way I don't need to cut it, and the theme of the logs following the building kind of stays intact. So I'll try not to get this too shaky, but here we are at this stage. It's very hard to give a really good impression of what this is like. I've got an idea.
So because we're going to be moving this building, it's important to number all the logs. Now, there are various ways to do this, and it's important to get it right, but this video is already getting quite long, so I will touch on my numbering method in the next part of this series.
So what's next? Well, obviously this has all got to get moved to the actual building site, but you may have noticed that during the build I didn't do peg holes, didn't drill any peg holes. Now what I usually do if I'm building in one place and then moving the building is I wait until the final build, when the logs are going in their final places on site, and then I do the peg holes. And that's because during the building you're rolling logs on other logs, you're knocking things around, things can move, and if you do the peg holes there and then move to the site, you sometimes find that they don't match up quite perfectly. Now, I don't have the option to do it that way in this occasion because the build site doesn't have any electricity and you need a powerful drill. So I'm actually going to do the peg holes as I take this building down log by log. So I'll do the holes in the log, lift that log off, do the holes in the next log, lift that log off. We'll do it that way. Now obviously the absolute perfect situation is that you actually build it immediately in the place where it's going to be, in which case you do the pegs as you go. But for obvious reasons, I built this here. We've got the forklift, it's nice and dry, makes sense to build it here much easier, and then take it down and move it up there. So I'm going to start drilling some holes and taking this down tomorrow. I think today I'll go get a cold beer.